Good morning. It's Wednesday, and here we are. We're going to talk about a couple of things. Primarily, uh, I've been annoyed by certain comparisons that have been drawn between current protests and some other ones. I do want to take just a moment to say, because after all, it's Wednesday, and so that's the name of the show. I'm not going to beat on CNN too hard today, but I do have to say this. As Cameron brought to my attention earlier, I was aware of this particular news item, rather, but Cameron brought up a cute little, an interesting little quirk about it to my attention. Um, the notorious RGB, Ruth Bader Ginsburg,
RBG, but yeah.
RGB, whatever. Um,
RBG.
did I say RGB or RBG?
You said RGB twice.
I'm a
It's okay.
filmmaker. RGB just kind of lives here. Red, green, blue. Um, Anywho, she's in the hospital again. She's not doing great. Um, we've talked,
Expected to make a full recovery, but in the hospital again.
yeah, and we've talked about this on the show several times. When when a conservative is in jeopardy or dies, like the most notable recent case was with Rush Limbaugh's late stage lung cancer diagnosis. The lefties were just up and just all over the place. Oh, good. I hope he dies. That he's such a monster, evil man. I hope he dies slow and painful. Like, Jesus, guys. The guy's a talk show host. You you disagree with him because you you disagree with him and you hate him because he doesn't like killing babies and thinks that people should keep, you know, most of the money that they earn at least. That, and why the hate? Why the why the constant deep hate? I have a lot of problems with RBG. Um, I don't. I'm not out here screaming for her to suffer and die. Now, I do think that she has passed the point that that she should still be working. I think that her health she's having such frequent and severe health problems. It's irresponsible and disingenuous for her to continue to serve. She needs to step down. She needs to retire.
Oh yeah, she's gonna hear oral arguments today by telephone from her hospital bed.
Yeah. See, that's
She's 87. Like I
yeah.
looked it up just so I could be sure. She's 87 years old and seems to go to the hospital once or twice a year for the past couple of years now. And I take your point really well. I don't actually want anything miserable to happen to her, but I do think we have to have the discussion. At what point is it inappropriate for you to continue to serve in one of the highest profile positions in the country? Like it is what it is. However, it's awfully funny. If you were to check CNN this morning, you'd have no idea that Ruth Bader Ginsburg
Nope.
was in the hospital. You would know that the evil orange man is going to reopen the country, even though we don't have a vaccine yet, though.
Trump pivots away from fight against unvanquished pandemic. Okay. And that's gonna not quite as neatly as I would prefer, but it'll dovetail just a little bit into what we're going to talk about for the rest of the show this morning. Um, Trump pivots away from fight against unvanquished pandemic. There's a good chance, guys, that there will not be a vaccine.
No, in fact, doing this whole quarantine lockdown thing has most likely caused so many extra viral generations to happen. God knows how many different strains of this virus there are now. And that's why you got to have a new flu shot every year, and why the flu shot is only 40, 50, 60, 70% effective from year to year, because there are so many different strains of the disease that there's no way to control it. Just
And
none.
okay, so the cure for cancer. There are a lot of conspiracy theorists that believe the cure for cancer already exists, and it's just not being released to us because it's more profitable to treat cancer. That's not quite right. The thing about cancer is, unlike a virus or a bacteria, unlike another disease, a cancer is a mutation of your cells. So it's not like there's a fungus that we can develop a fungicide for and cure cancer. There, because each individual cancer is a different mutation. Right? When they say you have lung cancer, they don't mean that you have a specific type of disease in your lungs. They mean that your lung has mutated, and the part of it that has mutated is no longer working correctly, and that mutation is causing damage and harm which spreads. But that doesn't mean that the genetic alteration of that lung tissue is the same genetic alteration as the genetic alteration of a different type of lung tissue. With a virus that is mutating, it's a little bit different because the strains do exist in more than one place, but the multiple strains exist in multiple different places. So the idea that we're going to have a vaccine for the coronavirus presupposes that there is a coronavirus, and that's not the case. So locking down and sheltering in place until we have a cure, uh, there is
We,
no panacea. That's not a thing. Herd immunity is probably our only option.
and we may have already blown that. And besides, Chris and I are old enough to remember, the AIDS scare, as it were. And it was theorized that by the year 2000, something to that effect, even one in every four heterosexual couples would have HIV. And of course, that never happened. But you know what else never
And it was
happened?
never going to happen.
Yes. But you know what else never happened is
A cure?
a cure. Well, hell, even going back to the common cold, we call it the common cold because it is a disease that is common to get, and we don't have a cure for. And speaking
No, in
of
fact,
diseases,
with the common cold, which is another virus, in fact, a coronavirus, um, the nope, lost it.
anyhow, point being, like don't hold your breath for the vaccine. You'll pass out.
So now we're 8 minutes in and we haven't even gotten to the topic. The thing that I wanted to talk about, I dropped a little something on Facebook yesterday, a little wisdom. I have been seeing memes on Facebook comparing the lockdown protesters to Colin Kaepernick. Specifically, the comparison that's being made is uh, we on the right are being accused of hypocrisy because people are protesting, because people are out saying that they don't want to be locked down anymore. And they're going on, it's like, oh, well, you're just a hypocrite because when Colin Kaepernick protested, you said that he shouldn't have his First Amendment rights and be allowed to protest. There's several things going on here that need to be addressed. For one, the at the time of the Kaepernick protest, the slur that was lobbed at those of us on the right who disagreed with Kaepernick, we didn't say he shouldn't be allowed to protest. We didn't say he didn't have a First Amendment right to protest. Now, there is an argument, and I made this argument several times, and I stand by it. There is an argument that the way that he did his protest was inappropriate because he was in a uniform in the voluntary employ of an employer, having voluntarily signed a contract, which contract he included his voluntarily agreeing to a code of conduct which did not include using the expensive airtime paid for by the private sports club to make his personal protests. Now, if he had wanted to, as a celebrity, have press conferences to talk about his issue, or as a celebrity, use his celebrity status to organize protests around the issues he was interested in, that would have been a completely different matter. He absolutely has a First Amendment right to do that. However, having signed onto the contract voluntarily, if the sports team wanted to fire him for violating the contract, for acting outside of the terms of his employment, that is not different. That is not in any way different than firing a McDonald's employee for urinating in your hot dog, in your hamburgers. All right? Colin Kaepernick being fired for kneeling on the field is exactly the same as firing a McDonald's employee for christening someone's milkshake. You have acted outside of the acceptable behavior of your voluntary employment contract. Now, that said, the substance of Kaepernick's protest is the thing that we on the right had a problem with. We didn't have a problem with him expressing his opinion. The problem we had is that we disagreed with his protest because the substance of his protest was the claim that black men are disproportionately treated badly by the police in this country. And that statement is patently false.
Yeah, according to the FBI's own statistics, while black people, mostly black men, constitute approximately 50% of all arrests in this country, they only constitute 1/4 of all deadly police encounters. And if these numbers tracked the way that the left would have you believe that they track, that black people are just routinely killed and beat up by the police, it would have to be that more than 50% of all deadly police encounters happen to black people. It's much more accurate to say that statistically speaking, you're more likely to be arrested if you are black, but you are far less likely to be killed if you are black. And besides,
these are white people shot by police. These are black people shot by police.
Look, and let's be real, Colin Kaepernick's a spoiled little bitch that had a lot of natural talent. He decided to underdevelop it. He was a one-trick pony who was raised by white people, by the by. But he was a one-trick pony that, yes, went to the Super Bowl
Rich
early
white
in his...
people.
Yeah. Funny how the children of rich white people are the socialists that think the entire capitalist system is so evil and terrible. Weird that. But no, he was a one-trick pony. And sure, he was amazing his first year. But he took a pretty sharp dive after that because he never developed beyond his initial set of, honestly, high degree of talents. But no, that whole thing happened awfully conveniently timed. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Looking like he's going to... Anyhow.
So basically, we disagreed with Kaepernick's positions because he's a liar and because he chose an inappropriate medium for his protests. When you're talking about the lockdown protesters, these are private citizens in their capacity as private people. They're not making they're not making statements on behalf of some employer. They're making demands under their First Amendment. And let's be clear: this is not the use of your First Amendment right to free speech. The lockdown protests are an explicit use of the First Amendment right to petition the government for redress of grievances, because the thing that is in occurrence right now, whether or not the response to the coronavirus pandemic is the correct response, the fact of the matter is that people are suffering hardship caused by the government as a result of the response to the coronavirus.
And don't forget assembly. I've long contested
And
that is
assembly,
actually,
yes.
I've long contested that the freedom to assemble is actually the most important component of the First Amendment, because the inability to get large groups of people together make them very easy to control.
Yes.
It's almost like if a government really wanted to overreach and shh, you're not really in prison. Shh, just stay home. I mean, I'm just saying. That sounds paranoid, but I am a little paranoid about this.
And and that might be its own whole show. But yes, if you are comparing the Kapernick protests to the lockdown protesters, you're either unintelligent or you're a liar. You cannot be honest and intelligent and draw reasonable parallels between those two sets of circumstances.
Well, I mean, we're talking about people that are on the verge of losing everything. And we're also talking about people that probably have got a similar level of understanding of the way the world works, the way economics works. And they understand, it's like, guys, we're right on the edge of a global depression here. No, I don't want the global depression, especially for something that is proving itself to be far less deadly than we were originally told.
And to be
The,
clear, a global depression will have more deaths than the higher estimates of the coronavirus.
oh, without a doubt, the starvation, the wars, like you.
Because so right now, the coronavirus is not doing a lot of damage in third world countries. Once a global depression is in order, and the first world countries that pay for all of the, which by a wide margin, by the way, is only us, that are basically paying welfare state costs into the third world countries. Once a global depression makes that stop, those third world countries are going to see enormous numbers in starvation deaths.
Not to mention the
And
fact that their
cannibalism.
entire, well, I wasn't even going to say that. I was just going to say, not to mention the fact that their entire medical infrastructure will collapse.
Oh yeah,
And
it's
then,
gone.
and then I bet you anything, China's ready to just sail right in and be like, oh, we sell you ibuprofen very cheap.
Yep.
But no, the biggest difference is the substance of it. Like the people that are protesting, hey, I'm starting to run out of money. I don't know how I'm going to pay my mortgage next month. Like
Or
that's
eat.
that's a real thing to protest about. Um, but a multi-million dollar athlete that is a little spoiled, deliberately kneeling during the national anthem, and I mean he
And
tanked.
pretending like there is still legitimate and problematic racism in this country. That's another thing. If your complaint is that racism is a legitimate problem in this country, you're just wrong.
Well, no, there's definitely
It's
things.
not the case.
Well, there's definitely things that you could do that would change the way our court system views, these racial disparities. For example, you could loosen gun control restrictions, which seem to somehow disproportionately affect poor inner city minorities. You could decriminalize drugs at the federal level. Another set of laws that seem to somehow disproportionately affect poor minority communities. There are things that we could do, but the gun
Hi,
one in
Doris.
particular.
Sorry, we got a comment. She just waved. Hi.
But the gun one in particular, um, if you really want to change the way minorities are perceived, like, okay, fine, less gun control. Just period.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're at the 20-minute mark, and if I go on about this, I'll go on about this. So I'm going to go ahead and say that's all I've got for this morning. And you got anything else you want to close with there, Cameroon?
Nah, I mean, Colin Kaepernick sucks, but
Yeah. So, yeah, stop pretending like Kapernick lying on someone else's dime is the same as legitimate victims of legitimate malfeasance protesting on their own time and at their own expense.
yeah, the government's been wrong about everything up to this point, but they swear they've got it all figured out now, and you just need to stay home for another couple of weeks.
And they don't even swear that they've got it all right now, just that you need to stay home and let the world die while they pretend to figure it out. Living is not surviving. Okay? Living is an act of volition. If you do not live intentionally, you do not take a breath, take a drink of water, eat a meal, you will die. It's that simple. And that's a little darker than I wanted to go on the show today, but hey, it's
It is what it is.
I mean, we all just checked murder hornets off on our apocalypse bingo cards yesterday, so we are where we are. Ladies and gentlemen, we will see you tomorrow, and y'all be safe out there, and wash your damn hands. Shit, I've got 5 minutes to take a leak, smoke a cigarette, get some more coffee, and hop on another damn conference call. Later, brother.
Fast.